Well, she's sitting in the water. Hi everybody, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center. And once again, we're going to try the prickly pear jelly. Now, if you saw the first video, everything went fine. There's a tremendous amount of information. It's a lot longer than this one's going to be. Everything was perfect except there wasn't enough pectin. Also, I didn't have any lemon juice, so I've corrected all that. We're going to do it again. This will be an abbreviated one, just mainly for people that don't have the patience to sit through the first one. But there's a lot of good tips always in all my videos, long or short. It's worth watching. At any rate, here we are. We're going to pick the prickly pears. Tongs, because prickly pears have thorns. If it twists off easy, they're ripe. And these are at their peak right now. I've never had them at their peak really before, well, 2 years ago. You get a harvest every 2 years, by the way. And I haven't had them at their peak before because I've always gotten out ahead of everybody else, so they're not quite ripe. Everybody else waits till they're ripe. Well, if I wait and I'm 1 day later than somebody else, there's no prickly pears. I don't have to worry now because I've got my own harvest. These have been here for 11 years. Actually, 12 years. They've been here for 12 years. So these are mine. I can let them sit as long as I want. Anyway, let's get this bucket full. Okay, there we have it. About 5 more gallons of prickly pear fruits. And if you pan out here and look at my prickly pear patch, you'll see I have probably another 5 gallons out here. I don't know if I'll get to them or whether we'll just let the birds eat them, but they are ripe right now. All right, let's go to step 2. All right, folks, step 2, very simple. Dump them in the sink and rinse them off gently. Now, all you're doing is trying to rinse off anything that's loose. In my case, you know, feathers, loose bird crap maybe, an insect or two. You're not going to be too concerned about washing them. Mainly because you're going to cook the hell out of it, so any pathogens or anything that happen to be in there is going to be cooked significantly. There's no risk of anything. And, you know, if you're, ooh, there might be birdie poo-poo on there. Well, you know, hey, grow up, understand things a little bit more. Life was not meant to be sterile. We did not survive the last million years in a sterile environment. It's just been in the last, really 50, 60 maybe, that we've moved more to sterility. So at this point, now we're going to move ahead. I'm going to tell you one more time about the thorns. The thorns, we're not worried about them. We're going to grind up thorns and everything because first of all, we're going to strain through the cheesecloth and the ham bag. That's going to take out, oh, let's just pick a number, 70% of the thorns. Then we're going to cook it. That cooking process is going to soften and really do away with a lot of the, well, all the remaining thorns. Any that might come through the, after that, because we're going to strain it one more time after that, anything that might come through there, really, you know, it's just like a little particle of whatever, pulp or something, so you don't need to worry. That's the big thing about this that puts a lot of people off, is how do you dethorn them? And then you kind of stop when you've got to light a torch or peel them or whatever. You don't have to do it. So that's step 2 right now. We'll go to step 3, which very simply is grinding them up. Okay, so I've set you up so you can see my blender. You can just barely see the pot that I'm going to dump the pulp into. The sink's over there with them. Just want to give you a word for those of you that may have tuned in. Maybe can't do anything about mercury. A little doubtful about, oh well, you know, I got to skin them, I got to do this. You know, on Weather Nation, and I don't know how many other cable channels it is, but they're advertising a juicer now. And the juicer is just the best thing on the planet, the best invention ever, according to people that are selling it. But you'll notice they're juicing and they're putting a watermelon rind and all in there. They're putting all this stuff in. I wouldn't be surprised if they stuck a banana skin and all in there. The point is you're getting the moisture out of whatever is here. If you're going to eat what's inside the prickly pear skin, what's wrong with the skin itself, whatever moisture is in there? So we're getting the moisture out. And you know, why create more work? The whole point of what we do here is to make life easier, not harder. and to get you back to the things that you're hardwired for, the things that mean something to your primal brain. Some of you millennials are out there. I'm sure if you don't have your hand phone, your smart-ass phone in your hand, it's right next to you, and you're sitting there saying, well, what does she mean by primal? There is something satisfying about going out and picking these fruits. Now, it's probably not as easy as going and buying it in the store. And then you've got more time to do this. But the thing is, and the point is, there is something satisfying about foraging for your own food. Remember, we've only not been foraging as a species for a couple hundred years. For 1,000,000 years before then, we were foraging and we were eating some 320 different items that was in our diet. We're down to about 20 that you were eating. Debbie and I eat a few more, but I doubt if we hit 60 different items that we eat. This is one of them. I got to tell you, I'm satisfied after pulling those, even though I probably have some thorns that I can't feel yet. So anyway, here we go. We grind it up. Oh yeah, it gets stuck. So you put the pulp to it. Remember where those blades are, because you don't want to stick your tongs or a wooden spoon in there. That's it. That's all the grinding. And then you just prell it. What's prelling it? Lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, and so on. And that's where we'll go. When I get this done, we'll turn it back on. Hey, I'm about to chop up the last blender full. Couple of things here I want to tell you. First of all, I don't know if you can see all the juice, the stain on my limestone countertop. It gets on you, it gets on stuff. It is not as bad as you think it is. Wipe it right up, and you can use a little soap and water, and then you can even spray a little bit of a very weak bleach and water spray on it. If it doesn't all come out, relax. In a few days, it will. Now, another thing, I picked about 2 gallons less of fruit than I did the last time, and I've got more juice. That's the difference at a really good rainstorm, which we had about 10 days ago, and just the extra days made. So here we go. Keep your top in your hand, because when it does that, it might splash. I don't know if you timed that, but it was about 5 seconds from the time it actually started to go down. You don't want to cut up everything. You don't want to cut up the seeds. I've seen some videos where one of the guys said, oh, you don't want the seeds to crack up and get in your juice at all because the seeds are very bitter. Well, first of all, you shouldn't be eating the seeds. Yeah, I know they're kind of like nuts, but I mean, don't eat the seeds. If they're bitter, don't eat them. I'm not letting them grind up enough to chop up the seeds. But even if I did, I doubt that the bitterness would overcome the like 6 pounds of sugar I have to add to this. Probably kill the bitterness. So anyway, there we are. Next step is straining. Okay, this goes pretty much the same as the first video, but I'll bet you that about half of you didn't see the first video, so let's go over it again real quickly. Not real quickly, because this is probably the most important step. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the fruit press. And I'll tell you, if you don't have a fruit press, a lot of this stuff I understand that you may not have. And if you want to do any canning or any preserving or creating your own foods, you're going to eventually need some of this stuff. But you don't have to on this or blueberries, blackberries, black raspberries, any of that stuff. You don't have to have a fruit press. What you'll do is you'll get it all set up like I'm going to do here in a pan. And then you'll bring all the ends together and twirl them around and just keep tightening it down, just twisting and twisting. And as the bag gets more twisted, it's going to squeeze the juice out. You won't get near as much juice as I'm getting, but you'll get some juice, and that's satisfying in itself. And then also, if some of you are looking and saying, well, geez, I don't have prickly pears around my place. You know, this isn't of much interest to me. Well, again, cherries, blackberries, blueberries, black raspberries, any fruit. You're going to do pretty much the same thing, so pay attention. So what I'm doing here, this is a ham bag. Well, why am I just not using a ham bag to begin with? The reason I'm not using a ham bag to begin with is the ham bag stretches, because it doesn't know how big of a ham you're going to put in there. So it's built to stretch. And as it stretches, it opens up more holes and you'll get seeds and pulp that you really don't want in your finished product. I wouldn't mind having some of the pulp. The problem is getting the seeds out of the pulp, and it's much easier to just go for the pure juice. So you just fill up as much as you can with what you have. So don't count what I'm putting in here. I'm just kind of filling up my ham bag. And then the ham bag is going to be a single-use item, so I need a ham bag for every batch I'm going to press down. I'm going to reuse the cheesecloth because it's not going to get any material in it. All the material is going to go into the ham bag pretty much. Now, I'm already getting juice, and that's what I meant to say. Just that little bit, oh, I think I already said it, that little bit of weight made these so much juicier. And you ought to see, it's pouring out like you have the, like you'd have your sink on at your house on a pretty good trickle. All right, so that's enough. That's all I'm going to put in there. I have to keep everything covered because out here in the desert in the summertime, we don't have any mosquitoes, ha ha ha, but we've got flies. Tons and tons of flies. They look like house flies, but if it's going to rain, these things that look like house flies, they bite. So I got to cover it up where they get into everything. And the last thing you want, and I've had it, is you have a nice drink that you've made. You've let it sit for a minute. Maybe you went to the bathroom or whatever. And you come back and there's 16 flies in it. Dead, of course. They got drunk and died. But they're in there. And, you know, I don't care. Even though we don't have disease floating around out here like you would have in the city, nobody wants a fly in their drink. I'm sorry. You just don't want it. Okay, get everything settled now. I'm cranking this down as you see. You should hear that juice just pouring out of this. Now this is a point, if you have a fruit press, folks, and maybe you haven't used it, this is the point in the whole process where you need a ton of patience. Do not rush it. Do not sit there in the yard and crank it down. That's what I did the first few times I used this. It's very counterproductive. You just take it down until it gets tight, and then wait a bit. Now I'm ready. That's not tight because I don't have the stick in here. Now I got my stick in. I lost the one they gave me with the fruit press. And I forget the name of this fruit. Oh, here. Happy Valley Ranch Fruit Press. And they have cider mills too for those of you that might want a little more pressure. This doesn't put out a lot of pressure because it's a fruit press. But if it were a cider press, it'd put out a lot more. We don't really have access to apples cheap enough that I can waste the apples on cider. So there's no sense getting a cider press. And now you just wait and wait and wait, and I will turn this off and turn it back on when this batch is done because I want to show you the cake that's left when I press it out. Alright, I've pressed just about all I can out of that first batch, and now I've got to get ready for the second batch. And if you were just taking and twisting this, you just untwist it, dump out the cake. Now I've got a couple steps here. First of all, I've got the cheesecloth that I'm going to reuse. Look at that beautiful color. Don't you wish? Well, I wish, because of me and my pink shirts, I wish I could stain my clothing that color, or at least my shirts. But anyway, it washes right out, which is nice for cleanup. But it's not so nice if you're trying to, if you're trying to get that color for yourself. Now I'm left with this. This is this is the cake. And it's going to be a little moist, and you can't get every drop out. And so what I do with it, though, is I cut it, like you saw me just do, and dump it into a bucket. You're going to get prickles in your, thorns in your hand. This is where you're going to get the thorns, right here. You can see it's fairly dry. I got to tell you that just that couple weeks difference in the harvest time made all the difference in the world in how easy this was to cut. There we go. How easy this was to press out. And why am I dumping the cake instead of just throwing it out? Well, again, you're going to throw stuff out that ends up in the landfill. And in this case, This is highly nutritious. So it's going right to the poultry as soon as we're done. So then we just do it again, and I'll come back when I've got the juice all set. And we'll go on to the next step. Okay, I'm back in the Chaos Kitchen now. A lot of this stuff, if you're doing any canning at all, you already know how to do. The jars are sterilized, the lids and the rings are sterilized, ready to go. Everything's ready to go. I've got water over here that is getting ready to boil to put them in for their final bath. And over here, the prickly pear juice has been boiling for about, I don't know, about 15-20 minutes. I'm going to boil it a little longer. And then this will be the second attempt at making the jelly. And I'm shocked, I'm utterly shocked at how much sugar and how much pectin and lemon juice it calls for. Just amazed. I've got 78 cups that I started with. I'm going to probably be down to 75 because I'm trying to cook some of the moisture out of these. So I've got 75 cups of prickly pear juice. It calls for 96 cups of sugar if you follow some of these recipes. Well, I thought I had plenty of sugar. I bought 20 pounds of sugar. 20 pounds of sugar is only roughly 40 couple cups. So I'm going to go low sugar on it. I didn't get enough lemons, so luckily I have citric acid. I'm adding 2 cups of citric acid and 3 packages of Sure Gel pectin. The Sure Gel pectin is liquid pectin, so I've got 3 packages of that. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I'm just shocked, but when you start adding up the costs of 96 cups of sugar and all that pectin and all that lemon juice, if you use lemon juice in place of citric acid, it really makes this a pricey thing, even though the prickly pears are free. So I'm going to keep going and cook this down a bit more. We're going to add the pectin, the sugar, and the citric acid to it. Then I'm going to pour it in the jars and we'll see what happens. Okay, back in the Chaos Kitchen, I have finished. And what a surprise. 12 are done properly. Then I've got all these jars here because there was so much extra. I didn't have enough jars to prepare for proper canning. So I've filled these jars. These jars have to be refrigerated, and they'll keep as long as jelly or preserves would keep in your refrigerator if you'd opened them and stuck them in there. So a couple months, 3 months, who knows, as long as they're in the refrigerator. They will not keep out in the open because they're not sealed properly. But it was either that or waste all that extra prickly pear. So we're just waiting for these to cool and set up, I hope. And that will be the next segment, which will be, for me tomorrow, for you about 5 seconds from now. I will print the recipe, provided this works. I'll print the recipe that I used, the way I cooked this exactly. And then if you're going to make it yourself with a smaller amount, you'll proportion it down. I'll put the recipe in the comment, not in the comment section, but in the description, and see you in about 5 seconds.